investigator has become synonymous with ghost hunter due to a lot of the media coverage, but really there is a difference. Ghost hunting is a bit of a hobby or an entertainment thing. It's something that a lot of venues will offer as an experience. A ghost hunter is exactly how it sounds. It's a person who goes into a location for the primary purpose of finding and hopefully communicating with a ghost. A paranormal investigator is much more in-depth and usually has more training, more experience. A paranormal investigator is a person that enters a location for the purpose of diagnosing and hopefully resolving claims of unexplained activity. There's varying levels. Paranormal investigators like myself are certified through the Rhine. We do a lot of work with media consulting. We do work with research projects. We do work with teams all throughout the US. Some of us work with organizations and institutions like universities to help further research under the paranormal realm. So when somebody hears the word paranormal, to say something's paranormal simply means it's not normal. It does not mean it's supernatural, and it's not all about ghosts. In fact, I know some people who could be classified as paranormal. Much of what we label paranormal actually has rational scientific explanations. And unfortunately, with the media itself, paranormal tends to get grouped in with Bigfoot and aliens. So parapsychology is actually a much deeper interdisciplinary field. It's separate from ufology and cryptozoology, and it deals a lot more with consciousness, thus the psychology part. It deals with things like ESP, psychokinesis, hypnosis, remote viewing, and disembodied consciousness. And those are your out-of-body experiences, your near-death experiences, and those are also your ghosts. So, contrary to what some people will tell you, parapsychology is not a pseudoscience. It absolutely meets the statistical criteria for a mainstream science. However, there are a lot of even institutions that'll teach that it's a pseudoscience, and there's a lot of information on it being a pseudoscience online because it conflicts with a lot of people's dogmatic beliefs. If it doesn't fit with their beliefs, it can't be real, there can't be anything to it. But really, parapsychology it's been around for a very long time. It's absolutely a legitimate field with over a century and a half of progress and the support of major institutions like the University of Virginia, Princeton, UCLA, and one of my favorites, Cornell. A lot of people don't know this. Cornell University released a study in 2011 that proved the existence of extrasensory perception. So that was a mainstream publication, and it was groundbreaking. That was exciting. Whoa! Everybody else see that? So, but yeah, it was groundbreaking research, and it's very fascinating. And I do highly recommend, if you're into that kind of thing, look up Dr. Daryl Bem's research. And also, we have my personal favorite right now, and that is something. It's paranormal. Oh no, there we go. Okay. We have my personal favorite, Duke University, home of the Rhine Research and Education Centers. The Rhine Research Center is the nation's leader in parapsychology, in parapsychological research, and in the education. And more importantly, it is also my alma mater. So, right now you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with history? And I'm here to tell you everything. A huge part of my work involves digging into the history of a location, of an event and of the people involved in order to either confirm or completely disprove the stories behind unexplained phenomena. And history can even provide critical clues as to the cause of that activity. Now, my own organization, Para-Atlas, we're founded for the sole purpose of maintaining a database of locations that have reputed paranormal activity, and we compile accurate, documented history on those locations. So just think of Ancestry for haunted houses. Now, unfortunately, due to paranormal entertainment in the form of movies, television shows, books, and tourism, true histories of people, places, and events, they're being distorted. Despite all of our technology, we are playing a never-ending game of telephone with our past. We tend to care more about the drama than the documentation. We end up slandering innocent people, many of whom are long gone and can no longer defend themselves. And we twist or invent events to support a narrative that's simply not true. It's easy to think that it's happening out there, and especially on TV, but the truth is, it is happening right here in our backyard. There is a new tour company in town, and full disclaimer, it is absolutely not True Tours. Stick with True Tours. But there's a new tour company in town that is spreading a lot of stories that people are getting excited about. They're basically saying Edgar Watson is stalking the streets of Fort Myers at night. There's even been reports of him chasing people out of Fort Myers Cemetery. And hopefully that's local law enforcement, not local serial killers. There's a story of bathtubs filling with blood in the Burroughs home. And there's also the story of two men that they haunt the courthouse because they were hanged for crimes they did not commit. So if you know your history, that's a huge red flag. We've actually, as a city, officially, we've only ever hung one person, and he earned it. So right now I do want to show you a really big example, a great example. Some of you here may have seen the movie The Conjuring, or one of its many, many sequels and spinoffs. The major appeal to the Conjuring franchise is that it is based on a true story. And this is, that's true, but the problem is that disclaimer, based on a true story, is extremely vague. It's just that, it's based on it. Now, in the movie The Conjuring, you have Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were real investigators. They go into the Perron family's farmhouse to investigate these claims, and, no spoilers, but yay, they saved the family. In truth, they did go into the Perron family farm to investigate, ended up getting in a fist fight with Roger Perron, and were kicked off the property. So, that would have been a very short movie if it was really true events. But the problem with the original Conjuring movie is that it uses a woman by the name of Bathsheba Sherman. Now, this woman was a Satan-worshipping witch who sacrificed infants, and then she hung herself on the Perron family property because it was her property, and that was part of a curse to forever keep people off of her land. She returned in the 1970s to torment the Perron family as an evil spirit. Now here's the problem. Bathsheba Sherman was a real woman. That's the real one. Bathsheba Sherman was a real woman who lived on a farmhouse. It was nearby the Perron family farm, but it was not the same property. She just lived nearby. That is her only crime. She lived a peaceful life with her family She was not a Satan-worshiping witch. She was actually a lifelong devout Baptist. By all accounts, she was a normal woman. Now, here's the problem. Since the movie came out, a lot of people, and trust me, this movie was popular. A lot of people have taken it upon themselves to punish her for her evil deeds by destroying her gravesite. First of all, I mean, unless she's there and having to clean up herself, I don't think you're really punishing anybody. So her descendants and the local historians have had to take extra measures to not only protect her grave and the graves around them, but also to clean up after the people who have been getting in, clean up after the people who think they're seeking justice. And this right here, this is a perfect example of why our history matters. When history is ignored or twisted, it doesn't just create ghost stories. It damages real people's reputations, it damages their families, and it damages their communities. Our responsibility as historians and investigators is to separate the fact from the fiction, to protect the truth, and to give respect to those who came before us. Now that we've covered a little bit about parapsychology and the history involved, I'm going to get to the reason you're really here, the ghost stories. So I'm actually going to start a little bit off of our coast at a popular destination for treasure hunters. This is Cayo Palau. It's located in Charlotte Harbor, and it actually straddles the border of Lee and Charlotte counties. And you would think this nice little tropical destination would be fought over, but no, neither county will take responsibility for it. It's just kind of out there. To most, it looks like any other stretch of mangroves and sand, water, but beneath that tropical beauty lies one of Florida's most infamous legends. And that is the story of pirate Jose Gaspar, or Gasparilla. Real quick, just making sure we don't have any audience too young, just because this particular story is rated R. Not ashamed. According to legend, Cayo Palau was once a home to a rough settlement called Lowtown. And this is where Gaspar's crew would hang out when they weren't terrorizing the Gulf. And Lowtown had it all. They had a general store, they had a graveyard, they had a blacksmith, they had a doctor, they had merchant warehouses where they would store their loot. They had blacksmiths, saloons, and there was about 40 or 50 shacks out there where these men could rest until their next voyage. Meanwhile, Jose himself preferred a little more refined lifestyle. At least I'd like to imagine that was his. So he is said to have a home near Boca Grande in a place called Hightown, where he could enjoy the peace and quiet of island life. Since peace and quiet are not compatible with the rowdy behavior of drunken sailors, Jose would drop his crew off at Lowtown before heading home to put up his feet and catch up on the Kardashians. I heard as many laughs as groans. So Gaspar's crew had a reputation. He needed men who could endure the harshest conditions and also follow his most malicious orders. So he would hire criminals, he would hire mercenaries, he would hire men that had been enslaved on the vessels he captured. And by hire, I mean he gave them the choice, work for Jose or swim with Davy Jones. So, now, nothing remains today of Lowtown. But since the 1960s, there have been numerous reports of visitors to the island finding freshly dug holes, discarded tools, and even splintered debris that They always say, oh, that's the remains of a treasure chest. And in addition to that, you also have the sightings and the stories of the unexplained. Those are the agonized wails, the ghostly laughter, the distant music, disembodied screams, and shadow figures that dart between the trees. There's just, it would make sense given that Lowtown was a high energy, low moral place, for pirates. There is just one problem with this. Lowtown did not exist, and neither did Jose Gaspar. So Jose Gaspar was a fictional character that was created in 1913 by Pat Lemoyne. He was a publicist for the Charlotte Harbor and Northern Railway Company, and he penned the story of Gasparilla as a promotional brochure for the company's latest luxury hotel, the Gasparilla Inn. Now this pamphlet was distributed nationwide. It brought a lot of Northerners down. They wanted to learn more. They wanted to stay in the home of Gasparilla. Now, a decade later, we began seeing Jose Gaspar recorded in actual history books. And this is effectively where the lines between fact and fiction got blurred, because the first publication was out of Massachusetts, so it would make sense that they had no idea Jose wasn't real. And so there were other books that followed that initial publication that started in 1923 that contributed to Jose's real history. So then what about the ghostly activity on Cayo Palau? That has actually been investigated and has some pretty interesting explanations. Now, the most dominant claim on Cayo Palau is the sounds of wailing. It sounds like men in agony, and they're in pain, and it basically, it's a very, very common claim, so much so that it was the first thing everybody says when they visited Cayo Palau. We heard the wailing. Well, yes, there absolutely is wailing on Cayo Palau, and that is caused by the Boca Grande Bridge into Gasparilla. What's happening is that as cars are passing over the bridge, their tires are humming against the concrete. That humming is being distorted by the distance to Cayo Palau, and actually in what is a very common phenomenon known as the Doppler effect. What sounds to us like a car passing over the bridge sounds like tormented wailing on the island of Cayo Palau. Now, there are plenty of other claims that have been explained away by local wildlife, and also because this is a popular area for boaters. So the disembodied voices, the music, those are explained by passing vessels, and also sometimes the wind and water are flowing right. You can hear the neighboring islands, the Gasparilla and all those. If they've got restaurants or establishments, they're throwing a nice rowdy party, you can hear that from there as well. So over the years, though, the legend of Jose Gaspar has blossomed into a full-blown Florida folklore empire. It's really hard to say, by the way. So it has inspired festivals, parades for the second best football team, and many, many tales, many tales stretching far and wide along Florida's Gulf Coast. In fact, Gasparilla is the subject of numerous legends right here in Lee County. And here's one you may be familiar with. This is Yusepa Island. Yusepa is said to have gained its name from the very Spanish princess that haunts its shores. As the legend goes, Josefa de Mayorga was the daughter of Martin de Mayorga, who was, oh, there's Isabel. He was the viceroy of New Spain. That's us, by the way. So, his daughter is said to have caught the eye of Jose Gaspar, and upon first sight, he fell madly in love with her. However, she wanted nothing to do with him. She wasn't interested. So he didn't like her refusing his advances. So, out of desperation, he kidnapped her and imprisoned her on Josefa Island. Now, his idea, not quite the romantic, his idea was that he was going to wear her down, break her spirit, and eventually she had to love him. She had nowhere to go. But he underestimated her. She's a proud woman. Now, some versions of the story tell that he eventually gave up, sailed away, and left her to die alone on the island. The more popular version of the story is that in a fit of rage, he murdered her, and then he immediately regretted it and buried her respectfully on the island. So, we already know this version of events is highly unlikely because our antagonist was busy not existing. We could conclude that Josefa met her end, as described, but at the hands of a different person, different sailor, different love-struck sailor. Historical research, however, has proven that's not the case, and I am happy to report Josefa actually did not meet a violent or heartbreaking end, because she never existed at all. Now, Viceroy Martin de Mayorga, one person, had 2 sons and no daughters. So, how did Josefa get its name? Now, admittedly, the story of Jose and Josefa is a much more interesting story to tell around a campfire than what actually happened. And that story begins and ends with a man by the name of Jose Caldes. Now, Jose, he had a fishing rancho, which is basically a little fishing farm on Josefa Island in the early 1800s. He referred to the island fondly as Josefa's Island. In 1833, Jose sold the island, packed up, and returned to Cuba with his family. It's easy to understand how a language barrier or an accent, or even some of these blotchy maps, could easily have misconstrued Josefa's Island as Josefa. So, a fun fact also about Jose Caldes is that he's really a true fisherman. And what I mean by that is he could have named the island for his daughter. He could have named it for his wife. He could have named it for his lovely mother. But no, Josefa was Jose's one true love. He had a schooner named the Josefa. So, despite the lack of evidence to support a story of an imprisoned princess, there have been numerous sightings of a spectral woman wandering the shores of Josefa Island at night. Now, we could speculate that she is the spirit of a former Josefa resident who just loved their home so much they haven't been able to leave. It's also quite feasible it's one of the current residents, but I digress. This thing's not falling in. Okay, so I am gonna throw Jose under the bus just one more time. And so I'm sure everybody knows what this is. And this is possibly one of our most popular local legends. And it surrounds the construction of Fort Myers' first paved road, McGregor Boulevard. The story goes that while dredging for shell for the road's construction, the crew accidentally unearthed over 100 skeletons, 103 to be exact. Now, construction engineer Maurice Pearl, he was unfazed, and he wasn't going to let this stop him. So he said, he pushed his men forward, he said, just keep going. And that's what they did. The unearthed bones were tossed in with the shell and sand that was collected at Sword Point. And it is said that those bones are still under McGregor to this day.
Where?
That is actually an excellent question. So how they did this, and unfortunately this is how a lot of our roads are because it tears up our tires, but the shell was actually used as a mix to lay the foundation on which the asphalt was pressed. So it's possible that that particular load of bones ended up in one area, or it's possible that it just got spread all through a longer distance. But excellent question, because I want to know too. So many believe that because of the desecration of the grave, it's created a lasting scar on McGregor Boulevard. It has an eerie reputation of restless spirits buried within its base. There are reports of ghostly apparitions walking McGregor at night, cellular dead zones, and a lot of the houses that line McGregor have actually reported paranormal activity. McGregor is literally haunted from the ground up. Now, as the tale continues, Maurice Pearl himself became tormented by apparitions and plagued by his own guilt. He fled Florida for his home state of Michigan, and then disappeared entirely, never to be seen again.